Freedom. Ah, freedom. Who doesn't want to be free? To fly like a bird, to do whatever you want, whenever you want, without ties, with no one to dictate the rules. It sounds like the golden dream of human existence, doesn't it? But what if I told you that one of the most brilliant minds of the 20th century, the French philosopher and writer Simone de Beauvoir, presented us with a vision of freedom that is, at once, much more radical, much more powerful, but also deeply uncomfortable? What if being truly free were much harder, more agonizing than we usually imagine, but precisely for that reason, also infinitely more incredible and transformative? Today, we're going to dive into Simone de Beauvoir's existentialist philosophy to unravel why freedom, this condition we so desire, can be a heavy burden, but also our greatest gift and our greatest adventure. Simone de Beauvoir, the philosopher of radical freedom and the human condition. Simone de Beauvoir was much more than Jean-Paul Sartre's companion, although their intellectual partnership was fundamental. She was an original and courageous thinker, an award-winning novelist, a sharp essayist, and of course, one of the mothers of modern feminism, with her monumental work, The Second Sex. Roots in existentialism. Her philosophy is deeply rooted in existentialism, that current of thought that places human existence, freedom, and individual choice at the center of everything. For existentialists, and for Beauvoir in a striking way, we are not born with an essence or a human nature predefined by God or biology. We first exist, we find ourselves in the world, and only then, through our choices and actions, do we define who we are. We are constantly creating values with our actions. This radical responsibility for ourselves, and indirectly for the image of humanity we project, can generate profound existential anguish. The escape from freedom, bad faith. Faced with this heavy burden of freedom and the anguish it can generate, many of us, according to Beauvoir and Sartre, try to escape. How? Through bad faith. Bad faith is a form of self-deception, of lying to oneself, pretending that we are not free, that we have no choice. It's when we say, "Oh, I had no choice, circumstances forced me," or "I'm just like that, it's my nature, I can't change," or "I was just following orders," or "society made me this way." It's when we hide behind rigid social roles, determinisms, excuses to avoid the weight of responsibility for our own lives. It's often easier to see ourselves as things molded by external forces than as free and autonomous beings. But this escape for Beauvoir is a betrayal of our own humanity. The ambiguity of existence, no absolute answers. Another uncomfortable aspect of our free condition is that life is intrinsically ambiguous. There are no absolute certainties, no definitive black and white for all moral or existential questions. We are constantly confronted with the need to make choices in complex situations without guarantees that we are doing the right thing absolutely. This ambiguity, this lack of a firm ground of eternal truths, can be disconcerting. But, as we will see, Beauvoir also finds in it the space for our ethical creativity. The Second Sex, a case study in denied freedom. To understand how this freedom can not only be uncomfortable, but actively denied or distorted, Simone de Beauvoir's monumental work, The Second Sex, is fundamental. Although that is a pillar of feminism, her analysis of the feminine condition is, above all, a profound existentialist reflection on freedom. One is not born, but rather becomes a woman. This iconic phrase summarizes the idea that the characteristics and roles attributed to women are not natural or biologically determined in their totality, but rather social, cultural, and historical constructs that have been imposed on them throughout the centuries. Woman as the other. Beauvoir argues that historically, man defined himself as the subject, the absolute, the essential, while woman was defined in relation to him as the other, the inessential, the object. This imposed alterity fundamentally limits woman's freedom to define herself. Immanence versus transcendence, the trap of passivity. While man was encouraged to transcendence, to go beyond himself through projects, actions in the world, creation, woman was frequently confined to immanence, to passivity, to the repetition of the biological cycle, to caring for the home and others, to being for the other instead of for herself. Her freedom to project herself into the world as an autonomous being was curtailed. Oppressive myths and social structures. Beauvoir analyzes the myths, laws, customs, education, religion that historically conspired to keep woman in this position of second sex, hindering her full assumption of existential freedom and pushing her, often into bad faith, accepting her natural role without questioning it. Liberation is the conquest of existential freedom. The struggle for woman's liberation for Beauvoir is not just for equal rights, although that is crucial. It is fundamentally a struggle for her full assumption of existential freedom, for the right to define herself, to choose her own projects, to transcend her situation, and to be recognized as a full subject, not as an other. And it's important to emphasize, although the second sex focuses on the feminine condition, Beauvoir's analysis of how freedom can be denied, distorted, or internalized as oppression serves as a powerful example for understanding the struggles of any oppressed group or any individual who feels trapped by social expectations or by their own bad faith. The incredible power of freedom, self-creation, and transcendence. Okay, we've understood the uncomfortable side, the burden of freedom, but Simone de Beauvoir doesn't stop there. She shows us that precisely because we are radically free, and because we don't have a predefined essence, there also lies our greatest power and our greatest dignity. Being free is also absolutely incredible. The astounding power of self-creation. You are your own work of art. Think about the magnitude of this. You're not doomed to be one way forever. You can rebuild yourself, reinvent yourself, become the person you choose to be. Your life is your masterpiece in constant construction. Authenticity, the joy and integrity of living in accordance with oneself. When we embrace our freedom and take responsibility for our choices, we can live authentically. And authenticity for existentialists is a profound source of joy, integrity, and inner peace, even if it is a peace won amidst the anguish of choice. It is the satisfaction of being true to oneself, to one's freely chosen values. Transcendence and project, our capacity to go beyond and create meaning. Freedom is realized for Beauvoir in our capacity for transcendence. What is this? It is our ability to go beyond our given situation, our being in itself, our facticity, our body, our past, to project ourselves into the future, to have projects that mobilize us, that give us a direction, that engage us in the world, which on its own may have none. A project doesn't have to be something grand like changing the world. It can be learning a new language, writing a book, building a healthy relationship, dedicating oneself to a cause, raising one's children consciously, or even cultivating a garden. What matters is that it is a project that comes from your freedom and that allows you to act, create, and weave meanings into the world which, on its own, may have none. Creating meaning in a world without intrinsic meaning. The absurd as a blank canvas. If the universe is silent and indifferent to our search for ultimate meaning, as Camus, a friend of Beauvoir, would say, then our freedom allows us precisely to be the creators of meaning, not a universal and eternal meaning, but particular human meanings that give value and purpose to our existence and our communities. The absurd, in the sense, can be seen as a blank canvas where we can paint our own existential masterpieces. The ethics of ambiguity, acting in the world freely, responsibly, and in solidarity. In her book, The Ethics of Ambiguity, Beauvoir explores how we can act ethically once we recognize our radical freedom and the ambiguous nature of the world and the human condition. The first ethical requirement is to want oneself to be free. But that is not enough. One must also want the freedom of others. Our freedom is only fully realized when we fight so that all others can also be free. We cannot be authentically free by oppressing or denying the freedom of others. Our life projects must be chosen and carried out in such a way as not to transform others into mere objects or instruments for our ends. Beauvoir's existentialist ethics is an ethics of responsibility, of intrasubjectivity, and of constant struggle against all forms of oppression that deny human freedom. Living your uncomfortable yet incredible freedom. How can we then, in our daily lives, begin to live this uncomfortable but also incredible freedom that Simone de Beauvoir presents to us? Question your certainties and your social roles. Take the risk of doubt. Pause for a moment and reflect. To what extent are the roles you play in life, professional, family, gender, etc., truly authentic choices? Or are they just conformities, automatic responses to social expectations, or the fear of being different? Dare to question. Face anguish as an inherent part of the freedom package. Feeling anxiety, doubt, or discomfort in the face of important decisions or ambiguous situations is a sign that you are alive and aware of your freedom. Don't run from this anguish at all costs, but try to use it as fuel to make more conscious and courageous choices. Define and embrace your own life projects. Be the protagonist. What truly moves you? What do you want to build, create, accomplish, learn? Even if it seems small or insignificant to others, having a project that is yours, that comes from your freedom, is a powerful way to exercise your transcendence and infuse the world with the meanings you choose. It is difficult, yes, but it is also what makes us incredibly, wonderfully human. In what area of your life do you feel the weight, the uncomfortableness of this radical freedom that Simone de Beauvoir describes the most? And on the other hand, where have you already managed to experience the incredible side, the liberating power of making authentic choices and feeling like the author of your own life? Share your reflections, your struggles, and your victories here in the comments. Let's learn together how to navigate this freedom. If our deep exploration of freedom with Simone de Beauvoir has provoked you, inspired you, and given you a new perspective, leave your like, share this video with everyone you think needs this dose of existential courage, and subscribe to the channel for more philosophical dives that help us live with more awareness and authenticity. A big hug, and until next time, may your freedom be more and more your own.